Have you ever had that dream that you can't seem to shake? The one where you're constantly thinking about what it would be like to do every single day, not only as your passion, but as your job? Well, I'm going to finally go for it. I'm challenging myself to become a full-time content creator and leave my 9 to 5 job. I'm going to be bringing you along on this journey, and periodically I will be updating you on where I'm at and how far away I am from that goal. Ever since high school, I've always had this dream of owning my own business and escaping the 9 to 5 lifestyle, because I didn't feel like the 9 to 5 lifestyle was one that I wanted to have. And so I always had this dream of creating my own business, work when I want, own my time, and do what I want. I wasn't very good at high school. Academically, I was suffering and I was bullied on a regular basis. And so I kind of retreated into my own self, and I was very much an introvert growing up, which ultimately led to being bullied more often. But academically, I didn't study for tests. I didn't really care about homework assignments. And by the end of high school, I graduated with the bare minimum GPA that they allow you, which was a 2.0 at the time. Because of this, I had asked my parents if I could take a year off of school before I go to college so that I could figure out what it is I wanted to do with my life. And my dad, unfortunately, didn't give me that choice. He said that I had to go to college, get a degree, and get a job. So I went. Back in high school and during college, I had this small interest in this one hobby that I never really picked up on. And I even took a course on it back in high school, but wouldn't have touched it again until after college. Throughout my schooling, I was just so fixated on deciding what career that I wanted. I went through 3 different majors and 2 different schools to figure it out. And I ended up being a general business degree major, which ultimately served me the best that I could potentially think of. It put me in the right direction. I was able to learn everything about what it takes to run a business from the ground up. Everything from supply chain management, business law, taxes, accounting, etc. And I thought to myself, this is it. Like, this is putting me in the right direction of what I want to do. The problem was I didn't know what business I wanted to do. I had a professor that was teaching Intro to Public Affairs, probably one of the easiest courses that you could take. But what made it difficult is that it was blue book assessments, and there was only 5 assessments throughout the entire semester. There was no homework assignments, there was no other tests, it was just those 5 blue book assessments. I had already done 3 of them and my grade was suffering. I had like a D, which is not passing. So one day he called me into his office after class, and I thought to myself, I was gonna get this big lecture about how I'm doing terrible in class, I'm probably gonna have to retake it. He sat me down and he was asking me about how things were going. In college, I worked full-time and went to school full-time. So I had no social life, I had nothing else to take up my time. I was literally focused on school and work and paying my bills. And I was honest with him. I told him, I was like, I feel like I'm being stretched thin. I feel like I don't have time to do anything. I'm just trying to survive. One of the things that he pointed out to me that he really appreciated about me, though, was I was very upfront with my experiences in class. This was a class that people didn't participate a lot in, and he said that every time I participated first, other people would follow. And that made him feel better about what he was teaching because he felt like he was making an impact on people. But at the time, I worked for a startup company, so I felt like I had a lot of experience that I could share with the class, where some of those people probably have never worked a full-time job before. At the end of the conversation, he made me a deal. And the deal was, if I were to do very well in the last 2 assessments and get my grade from a failing grade to a passing grade, which was a C-, he would write me a letter of recommendation. Something that he said he doesn't do for very many students. And I told him, sure, I'll take you up on that offer because I would love to pass this class and not have to take it again. And before he let me go, he did mention to me one thing that has stuck with me this entire time. That one day, if he were to pick up the business journal or read a newspaper that had my name on it, talking about some business that I own or run, that I wouldn't surprise him. And this all came back to the way I presented myself in class, the way I presented myself to him, and the things that I care about, which is my work ethic and my freedom. I've never had this type of support or anybody else say the same thing to me before. And so that's what's really stuck with me from that conversation. So at the end of the year, after completing the last 2 assessments, I actually ended up with a C+ rather than the C-, which is the bare minimum that I needed to pass the course. Now, this course that I took in high school and I never touched again until after college was actually photography. I learned in high school how to shoot with the film camera, how to develop film, and I even learned the basics of Photoshop and I had a lot of fun doing it. It was one of my favorite classes. The only reason why I took it was because my brother had taken it before me, and it was one of the electives that we could take for high school, so I did it. I went to college downtown Indianapolis, so it was a commuter school. I would drive my 1990 Celica shitbox to school, park at the top of the parking garage, and I would take out my phone and take a picture of it with the skyline of Indianapolis in the background. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And in one of my earliest posts on Instagram, I actually put that I want to be a car photographer. I battled around with the idea for a little while, and in 2017, I went on a trip with my friends right before my birthday to Maryland for a car event. My best friend let me borrow his Canon Rebel T6, and at the time, I no longer had my Celica, I had a random Honda, so instead I took pictures of other people's cars. And they were hot garbage. Like, they honestly really, really sucked. Although they sucked, I had a lot of fun doing it. Although I had no idea what I was doing, I was learning and I was growing. And I still have all those photos. I even still have all the videos I took with that camera too. Later in that month, I actually got a birthday gift from my family, which is this camera. This is my first DSLR that I've ever owned, and it's the Nikon D3400. I couldn't afford anything. I could barely afford to go on that trip with my friends. I was fresh out of college. Well, actually, I was about a year out of college, and I was still working my first corporate job, and I wasn't making a lot of money. I took it everywhere with me. I took it to sporting events. I took it with me out to Cars and Coffee. And then a few months later, I actually bought my Scion FRS. And this was the nicest car I've ever owned, and I still own it to this day. So what I would do is take this camera out with me every time I would go for a drive, and I would find random spots to take pictures of my car. And slowly over time, I learned how to use my camera. I learned how to edit. I watched YouTube tutorials like Peter McKinnon videos way back then, and I learned all my editing techniques through stuff like that, and then applied it to my own work. And now I didn't do photography as a serious thing. It was just a hobby for the first 6 years. But in these last 11 months, I have taken this a lot more seriously, and I have actually grown my audience on Instagram from 390 followers to, at the time of this recording, 145,000 followers. Now, there's still something missing here. Like, this isn't necessarily the end-all, be-all thing. I don't want to just be this big person on Instagram. I want to expand and grow and learn in other areas. So YouTube is actually the place where I want to expand and grow into. I've made my attempts at YouTube multiple times throughout the years, and I have done terrible in the past. And even some of the videos I've made this year, I'm not a big fan of. But I want to grow on this platform. I want to make more deep, meaningful connections with people here on YouTube. And I want to challenge myself creatively to do more stuff like this. Now, posting on social media has taught me a lot about consistency and about doing it no matter what. Because what I put out on Instagram, I love it. And if you came here from my Instagram page, thank you. Because everything I do on Instagram, I do it because I love it. And because of that, I've had a massive amount of growth over the last 11 months. Now here on YouTube, I want to do the same thing. I want to create things that I'm interested in, talk about things that I'm interested in, and just showcase all the different hobbies and interests that I have, and also grow my photography business while doing it. Now, there's gonna be videos where I just kind of talk like this, where I ramble about a random story, or it's off the cuff. It doesn't really provide a lot of value to you as the viewer, but it helps you understand who I am and where I'm coming from. Some other videos, I even want to just talk about the products that I own and the stuff I use, like my camera, the Sony a7 IV, the filter system I use, which is by Polar Pro. And, you know, all this other gear that I own, I want to be able to talk about that gear and geek out over it, because that's what I normally do anyways. So there'll be some videos like that, and then there'll be some videos of like the things I do out in the field, like when I go on photo shoots, when I go to Cars and Coffee or other car events. Like, there'll be some vlog style here and there. So that's it. I have no idea what the direction is going to be like for this channel, but I am going to challenge myself for the next 12 months to go as hard as I can into it and be as consistent as I can be, and grow this to something much larger and much more sustainable for me in the long run. Again, I'm trying to replace my full-time income. I want to be a full-time creator as my business. I want to be able to leave my 9-to-5 job and pursued this as my ultimate goal. And it's taken me only 12 years to get to the point where I feel confident in this. So if you're interested in following along with me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Also, feel free to leave some comments down below, any thoughts that you may have about your own experiences or your own goals that you may have, or even leave a comment about what you would like to see done on this channel. And I will gladly get to as many comments as I can and take in that feedback from you. So, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you next time.